The galaxy had grown used to war. For centuries, the great Galactic Empire had fought battles with dozens of species, conquering star systems and demanding loyalty from weaker nations. Most people living under the Empire accepted this as a natural order. The strong ruled, the weak obeyed, and those who resisted were punished. It was cruel, but it was familiar. No one expected that one day, an act so dark, so shocking, would change the very balance of power in the stars. The humans of Earth had long been considered stubborn and dangerous by the Empire. Their world was classified as a death world, a place where life was tough, unpredictable, and full of natural dangers. The Empire saw them as a nuisance, but not a true threat. When war broke out between Earth and the Empire, most aliens believed humanity would be crushed in only a few years. They underestimated humanity's willpower. After many long battles, the Empire captured millions of human soldiers. The prisoners were taken from broken colonies, fallen outposts, and destroyed fleets. They were transported to massive prison camps spread across the galaxy. For the Empire, holding so many humans was not only a logistical problem, it was also a chance to make a statement. The Emperor, a figure cloaked in pride and arrogance, ordered a grand event. 9 million human prisoners would be executed in a live broadcast, not quietly, not in secret, but openly, so that every world, every race, every citizen under the Empire's rule could watch. He wanted to send a message. Resistance is hopeless, humanity is finished, and no one should dare defy the Empire's power. The day of the broadcast arrived. On every Imperial world, screens lit up. Markets closed, schools were dismissed, and people gathered in public squares. Soldiers stood guard while citizens were forced to watch. Billions of aliens turned their eyes to the glowing displays, waiting for the show to begin. On Earth, families who still held hope for their captured loved ones also tuned in. At first, many thought it might be propaganda, perhaps an announcement of peace. But when the image came to life, they saw vast prison yards stretching across the horizon. 9 million human men and women stood in lines, bound, weakened, but unbroken. Their eyes were filled with courage even in the face of death. The Imperial announcer spoke in a cold, sharp tone. "Behold the fate of Earth's warriors. Let all species learn from this day. To resist the Empire is to choose destruction. Let humanity serve as an example." And then it began. The broadcast did not cut away. It showed every moment, every act. From orbiting stations above the prison camps, drones captured the horror. In one corner of the galaxy, aliens cheered, seeing it as entertainment. On other worlds, citizens turned away, sickened but too afraid to protest. On Earth, silence spread across every city as mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters saw their loved ones perish. World leaders gathered in an emergency meeting at the United Earth Government headquarters. The room was silent except for the voice of the broadcast echoing from the screens. Some leaders covered their faces, unable to watch, while others clenched their fists in anger. One general whispered, "This is not just war anymore. This is extermination." As the execution ended, the announcer declared victory. Humanity is broken. Earth is nothing. The Empire stands eternal. The transmission cut off, leaving only silence behind. But that silence did not last long. In the streets of Earth's cities, grief quickly turned into fury. Crowds gathered, waving banners, shouting for vengeance. Across colonies still under human control, workers abandoned their posts and demanded action. Families who had once begged for peace now demanded war. Ordinary people, once divided by politics, class, and culture, spoke with one voice. The Empire must pay. In the council chamber, the president of Earth stood tall. His voice was heavy with sorrow, but also filled with fire. "We have seen our people slaughtered. Not in secret, not by accident, but by design. This was genocide, broadcast to the galaxy as if it were a game. No longer will humanity sit in fear. No longer will we ask for mercy. Today, we declare before every star and every world, Earth will endure and Earth will rise." The declaration spread across the galaxy almost instantly. The word genocide burned like fire in the minds of many alien nations. Some dismissed it, fearful of the Empire's punishment. But others, species who had once suffered under imperial cruelty, felt a spark of hope. If humanity dared to call the crime by its true name, maybe there was a chance for change. On Earth, factories that had been silent for years roared back to life. Weapons production began at full speed. Ancient military projects once hidden in secrecy were unlocked. In underground bunkers, engineers whispered about prototypes that might change the course of war. Across the oceans, fleets of warships were prepared, their hulls painted black for the battles to come. The Empire had meant to terrify humanity, to break their spirit forever. Instead, they had awakened a storm. Every human, from soldier to scientist, from worker to child, now carried the memory of 9 million lives lost. It was no longer a war of borders or resources. It was survival, justice, and revenge. That night, as Earth's cities burned with light from rallies and marches, a single phrase echoed across the world. They wanted to erase us. Now we will show them who we are. And in the cold reaches of space, the stars seemed to flicker as if they too knew that a storm was coming. A storm called humanity. The broadcast of horror had changed everything. What was once a bitter but ordinary war had now become a fight for existence. The murder of 9 million prisoners was not only an insult. It was a wound carved into the heart of every human alive. On Earth, grief had already turned into fury, and fury was now becoming action. Factories that had been quiet for decades burst into life. Assembly lines worked day and night, producing ships, weapons, armor, and machines of war. Scientists who once built peaceful technology now turned their skills toward military designs. Students abandoned classrooms to join training camps. Farmers sent food to military stockpiles. The whole of humanity had transformed into one vast war engine. General Marcus Hale, a veteran of the first battles against the Empire, stood inside the command center of the United Earth Fleet. His eyes scanned the giant screen filled with data, maps of the galaxy, and red symbols marking Imperial territory. Around him, officers worked in silence, their faces grim. "This is no longer about victory," Marcus said in a steady voice. "This is survival. This is justice. Every ship, every soldier, every resource must be used. We cannot stop until the Empire falls." Beside him, Admiral Lena nodded. She had once doubted humanity's chances against the Empire, but now she felt something different. The rage of her people had burned away her doubts. "The galaxy thinks we are weak," she said. "They will soon see what humans can become when we are pushed too far." Awakening of hidden projects. Beneath the deserts of Mars, enormous steel doors opened for the first time in a century. Inside were ancient hangars filled with unfinished warships, massive vessels that had been designed during a forgotten era of preparation. Engineers walked through the dusty halls with renewed purpose, activating power systems, checking engines, and whispering to each other, "The Black Star class is ready." In the orbit of Earth, orbital shipyards were lit brighter than cities. Workers in suits floated across scaffolds, welding armored plates onto ships larger than mountains. These were not ordinary vessels. They were armed with experimental weapons, devices that had been considered too dangerous or too costly before. Now nothing was too dangerous and nothing was too costly. At secret research stations hidden in the asteroid belt, scientists revealed their most ambitious projects. Quantum drives that could bend space, rail cannons that could fire projectiles at near light speeds, drones that could learn patterns of enemy fleets and adapt in real time. Humanity had always been inventive, always been restless. Now their creativity was fueled by vengeance. First blood. The first counterattack came quickly. A small human fleet slipped into Imperial space, striking a supply station orbiting the world of Xeron. The Empire expected a weak skirmish, but what came was devastation. Human ships moved with precision, using new stealth technology to bypass defenses. In less than an hour, the entire station was destroyed, and the supply lines feeding 3 Imperial fleets were cut. News of the attack spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Alien nations who had seen the Genocide broadcast were shocked. They whispered to each other, "The humans survived. The humans are fighting back." Days later, another human fleet struck deeper into Imperial space, freeing a slave camp filled with thousands of alien prisoners. For the first time in years, the oppressed races of the galaxy saw hope. As they were liberated, the freed aliens chanted a name they once barely knew. Earth. Earth, Earth. The Empire begins to fear. On the capital world of the Empire, the Emperor sat on his golden throne, watching reports of the human counterattacks. His advisors trembled as they delivered the news. Entire convoys destroyed, fleets scattered, colonies rising in rebellion after human strikes. The Emperor's face darkened. "Impossible," he muttered. "They were broken. They were humiliated. They should be finished." One of his generals knelt before him. "Majesty, humanity fights like no other. They strike where we are weakest. They rally others to their cause. We underestimated them," the Emperor's voice thundered. "Then crush them again. Double the fleets, triple the soldiers. Show the galaxy that Earth is nothing." But inside, for the first time, he felt unease. Unity of the oppressed. While the Empire tried to respond, something unexpected began to happen. Small alien nations, ones that had once bowed in silence to the Empire, began to send secret messages to Earth. A council of resistance formed, made up of dozens of species who had suffered under the Empire's rule. They had always feared to rise, but humanity's boldness gave them courage. On a cold night in a hidden base orbiting Saturn, representatives of these alien groups met with human leaders. They looked at each other with distrust at first. Aliens had long feared humans, and humans had long distrusted aliens. But when the human president showed them the recordings of the genocide, and when they saw the tears in the eyes of ordinary human families, something shifted. A Cathari delegate, whose people had once been enslaved, spoke softly. "We were silent when your people were slaughtered. We cannot be silent anymore. If you will fight, we will fight with you." And so the alliance was born, not an empire, not a government, but a pact of survival. Together they would strike at the Empire, not just for Earth, but for every free world. The rise of Deathworlders. The more battles humans fought, the more the galaxy began to fear them. Soldiers from other worlds had always seen humans as strange, too emotional, too unpredictable. But in war, those very traits became terrifying. A single squad of human Marines could hold a position against 10 times their number. Human pilots pushed their ships beyond limits, performing maneuvers other species considered suicidal. Human engineers repaired damaged vessels with improvised parts in hours, while others would take weeks. The galaxy began to whisper a name: Deathworlders. At first it was said in fear, then in respect, and finally in awe. Humanity, born on a world of storms and predators, was unlike any other. They could not be broken. A message to the galaxy. After a series of victories, the United Earth government broadcast a message to the galaxy. It was simple, spoken by the President in front of the United Earth fleet. "We did not choose this war. We did not seek blood. But the Empire chose to murder 9 million of our sons and daughters. They wanted to erase us. They wanted to show the galaxy that humanity was weak. Instead, they have shown the galaxy why humanity must never be underestimated. To every free world, to every enslaved race, we say this: rise with us. Stand with us. Together we will end the Empire's reign of terror." That message echoed across star systems. Some ignored it, still fearful. But many listened. And in dark corners of the galaxy, oppressed people began to dream of freedom again. The Empire's nightmare. In only months, the Empire realized what had begun. Humanity was no longer alone. They were no longer fighting just for Earth. They were leading a rebellion of the galaxy itself. What was meant to be a warning had instead sparked a fire that could not be controlled. The Empire had tried to break humanity, but instead, they had awakened their greatest nightmare. A united humanity backed by allies, fueled by vengeance, and armed with the will to never surrender. And somewhere in the silence of space, the human fleet prepared for their next move, toward the heart of the Empire itself. The war that began with grief and fury had lasted for years. Humanity, once underestimated, had become a storm sweeping across the stars. Every battle carved deeper wounds into the Galactic Empire. Every victory pulled more species into Earth's alliance. The word genocide was no longer whispered in fear. It was spoken in fire. And it united countless worlds against the throne that once ruled them all. Now the storm had reached its peak. The United Earth fleet, stronger than ever, stood in orbit above the imperial capital world, Xylar Prime. Thousands of human warships stretched across the void, dark and silent, their weapons glowing with power. Behind them, ships of dozens of alien allies hovered. Once slaves, once subjects, now partners. For the first time in history, the galaxy was united not under fear but under purpose. Inside the Earth flagship Resolute, General Marcus Hale looked at the massive image of the planet on the screen. Its shining cities, once symbols of imperial power, now looked fragile and small. He turned to Admiral Li Na, her eyes sharp and steady. "We've come full circle," Marcus said. "They wanted to break us with a broadcast. Now we'll end them with one." Li Na nodded. No more silence. No more fear. The galaxy will see what justice looks like. The last defense, the Empire did not surrender easily. Even at the edge of defeat, their fleets rose to fight. Warships poured from Xylar Prime's docks, their weapons blazing, their crews desperate to protect their Emperor. The battle that followed was the greatest in galactic history. Human ships moved with precision, forming patterns that confused Imperial commanders. Rail cannons fired blasts that tore through capital ships. Quantum-driven vessels blinked in and out of range, striking from impossible angles. Allied fleets joined the charge, their soldiers screaming with the hope of liberation. Hours of battle turned into days. The skies above Xylar Prime burned with fire. Millions of lives were lost on both sides. But humanity, fueled by memory and purpose, did not break. One by one, the Imperial fleets fell. Finally, the last defense ship of the Empire was reduced to wreckage, and silence returned to orbit. The path to the capital was open. The Emperors fall inside the golden palace of Xylar Prime. The Emperor stood tall, wrapped in robes that once commanded respect across the stars. But as the sound of explosions echoed closer, his face twisted with fear. He had believed humanity weak. He had believed the broadcast of 9 million deaths would erase them. Instead, it had destroyed him. When the doors of his throne room burst open, it was not only humans who entered. Soldiers of dozens of races marched with them, their banners flying side by side. General Marcus Hale stepped forward, his voice steady and cold. "Your reign is over. You will answer not only to Earth, but to every free world." The Emperor tried to laugh, but his voice shook. "You think the galaxy will follow you? You think they will obey humans?" Marcus's reply was sharp. "We don't want obedience. We want freedom. And today we want justice." The Emperor was taken away, not killed in anger, but kept alive to face judgment. That decision would shape the future of the galaxy. The galactic trial weeks later, the greatest broadcast in history began. It was not a display of cruelty, but of justice. Every world, every colony, every citizen across the galaxy tuned in as the trial of the Empire's leaders was shown. The court was held in orbit, aboard a massive space station built for the purpose. At its center stood a council of representatives from every allied species, with humans presiding as the voice of the prosecution. Billions of eyes watched the accused, the Emperor, his warlords, and the commanders who had ordered the genocide. Evidence was shown. The recordings of the massacre of 9 million humans were played, the screams of the victims echoing through the court. Survivors of other imperial crimes stepped forward, telling stories of slavery, starvation, and terror. The galaxy, which once ignored such cruelty, now faced it openly. No one could look away. When the Emperor was asked why he committed the genocide, he sneered. Because it was easy. Because fear keeps order. Because humanity would never rise from it. His words sealed his fate, a new order. The judgment was unanimous. The Emperor and his warlords were declared guilty of genocide, crimes against sentient life and abuse of power. The sentence was not simple execution. It was the dismantling of the Empire itself. Its fleets were broken apart. Its worlds were freed. Its enslaved peoples were granted independence. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy was no longer ruled by fear. Instead, it stood at the edge of something new. The human president spoke to the galaxy once more. His voice was not filled with vengeance, but with solemn strength. "We were nearly destroyed. We lost 9 million of our brothers and sisters. But we did not rise only for ourselves. We rose for every voice that was silenced, every world that was enslaved. Justice has been done. Now together we must build something greater. A galaxy where no one fears genocide, where no world is crushed for the pride of one ruler. Humanity will not rule you. Humanity will stand beside you." The speech shook the stars. It was the opposite of the Emperor's words. Where he had demanded obedience, Earth offered unity. Legacy of the fallen on Earth, a great monument was built. 9 million names were carved into walls of shining steel. Families gathered to see the names of their loved ones. Tears in their eyes, but pride in their hearts. Children touched the names of parents they never met. Soldiers saluted their fallen comrades. The monument was not only for humanity. Around it were stones and pillars dedicated to every race freed from the Empire. Together, they formed a circle, a reminder that the galaxy was bound by shared suffering and shared hope. General Marcus Hale visited the monument one evening, standing in silence. Admiral Lena joined him, her face calm. "Do you think they can see us?" she asked softly. Marcus looked at the stars. I think they live in us. Every battle we fought, every ship we built, every life we saved, it was for them, and it will always be for them. The destiny of humanity, as years passed, the galaxy changed. Worlds once under chains became thriving societies. New councils replaced old thrones. Trade routes were rebuilt not for conquest, but for growth. And at the heart of it all stood Earth, not as conqueror, but as protector, as the one who turned grief into strength and strength into justice. The word Deathworlders was no longer a whisper of fear. It became a title of honor. To be human meant to endure, to fight, and to protect. The galaxy now understood that when humanity rose together, nothing could break them. And so the story that began with 9 million lost lives ended with billions saved. The Empire's broadcast of horror, meant to erase a people, instead gave birth to a legend. A legend that would echo forever in the stars. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity remembers. And when pushed to the edge, humanity rises, not only for themselves but for all.